Can I just start with the economy? Mark Carney said in a press conference last week, Governor of the Bank of England, can anyone in this room think of anything that I predicted that's turned out to be wrong when it comes to Brexit? There was silence. Presumably if you'd been in the room, you would have chipped in.
Yeah, I'm not, Governor Carney, in my opinion, should not have forecast what households and investors might do. That was the bit I took issue with because it was not balanced. It didn't say, on the other hand, if we remain in the EU, X and Y might happen. So it just wasn't balanced. It wasn't impartial. And of course, the truth is we don't know, as things stand, what households and investors will do. So we're not able to see whether his prophecies are correct. My own view is that what we need to do in our country is to be optimistic and start talking about the positive opportunities from leaving the EU. And as we know, the FTSE 100 is performing well against the predictions. The pound has not melted down as people suggested it might do. It has dropped a bit, and that is good for exports, it's good for inward investment. And of course, we've also seen that government borrowing costs have actually gone down, which is good for servicing our debt.
Would he keep his job if you were Prime Minister, Mark Carney?
Absolutely.
He hasn't behaved impartially, you had lots of criticisms of him. I imagine he might think twice about hanging around, but you say he could.
I believe that that there may well need to be a Treasury Committee look at whether impartiality was upheld. That would be for them to do, but I think Mark Carney does. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. No, I think the key thing for me, the key thing is the Bank of England's job is to ensure financial stability. He's done a brilliant job since the referendum to reassure the markets, to make sure that everything is in place just in case, that sort of safety net that the Bank of England is there to provide. He's done a great job with that, all credit to him. Before the referendum, I was concerned that the assessment of what people might do was actually going to stoke up instability. That was my very specific concern, and that concern is still valid.
When David Cameron was running to be party leader years ago, he was pushing a modernisation agenda. He did it in opposition. He was against grammar schools, he was for gay marriage, he was passionate about green issues. You're not in the same place on any of those, are you?
Yes, I absolutely am. Yes, definitely. Yes, I think...
You wouldn't have pushed gay marriage. You weren't sure about climate change until quite recently.
No, that's absolutely not true. No, I'm absolutely out there, very proud of the fact that the UK leads the world on climate change. The UK Climate Change Act...
You're on the record of saying you were a bit late to that view.
No, not at all. No, I don't know where you've got that from. Don't know why you're saying that.
Okay. No. What I suppose I'm wondering about, and some people in your party are wondering about, some of the MPs are wondering about, is whether the party that Theresa May badged, stigmatised as the nasty party, whether some of those values, old-fashioned values, she might think, some others on her side might think, anti-moderniser values, are getting a resurgence with your campaign.
I'm not aware that that's the case at all. I mean, you have to be more specific. I don't know.
I looked around the crowd of people that were at your launch, at the speech today, and an awful lot of them are people who didn't have much sympathy with David Cameron's modernisation of the Tory party.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm delighted with the support I've had from colleagues from right across the party. I mean, my ambitions as leader would be to absolutely prioritise the success of leaving the EU, to maintain tariff-free trade with the EU, to keep the free trade agreements that we're currently party to as a member of the EU, and to negotiate more free trade agreements, to get our immigration back under the control of Westminster Parliament so that it's free to the people who've already come here and to the rest of the world. And those are absolute priorities. But in terms of my own agenda, I have an absolute passion for social justice. That's the thing that really drives me in politics, is to see much greater share in our economy and in our future from those people who really do feel that they've been left behind. And for me, that all starts with the support for the earliest years. I make no secret of my support for the earliest relationships, that gives babies and young children the secure emotional health that enables them to succeed in school, in work, work, in friendships and so on. So I have a huge passion for social justice, and that's what really drives me.
Is the state too big? It's about 40% of GDP at the moment, isn't it?
I don't have a target for the size of the state.
But is it too big?
I think it's not a million miles away from where it needs to be. I don't think it should be bigger. I don't think the state should be spending the majority of the economy's wealth. I certainly think now we're in a much better place than we were in 2010 when we first came into government. But I don't have a sort of target for the size of the state.
Some people in your party are worried that what could happen is that the activists could impose you on a parliamentary party where you're greatly outnumbered by Theresa May supporters, a sort of Corbyn in reverse.
Right.
That's what it's all about at the moment, isn't it? That's the panic that's happened with the tweet, the email going around, and that's why you marched on Parliament, or your supporters did today.
Right. Well, I think actually that what is critical is to reunify the party, and we've had over the last few weeks we've had some pretty major momentous decisions, events, and it has been traumatic, I think, for a lot of colleagues, and I absolutely understand that. And I won't list them all, but some of them really quite horrific, as we all know. And I think for many people, we do actually need to put that a bit behind us and focus on the future. And that would be absolutely my target, would be to unify the party. My style of leadership is very much to delegate, not to be a centralist, and to try and empower colleagues. So secretaries of state under me would have more authority, likewise ministers under them, and I would like to see more use made of the talents of our backbenches in areas like trade envoys and in helping to support particular industrial sectors in the UK and so on.
Could I very quickly deal with just this CV stuff? You said in Parliament you were one of a small group of bankers, the Bank of England Governor, Eddie George, back then, called together, who managed to help to stop a bank run after the Barings collapse. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Yes, we were calling banks and around the world and saying to them, it's fine, there won't be a run on the banks. Eddie George sort of sweating it through the weekend, and you helped to stop a bank run. You personally, because that's what you said. Yes, absolutely. So very specifically, I was at the time the banker responsible for the relationship with Barings, and for the 2 weeks preceding we had rumours and we also had Barings asking us to lend them more money, to extend more facilities. We were getting very worried, and then of course on, I think it was the Thursday, it became absolutely clear that something disastrous had happened to Barings, and at that point we were called by the Bank of England and told we need to absolutely reassure other people. And so yes, we had some very late nights. Yeah, me. I don't know why they're disputing it. Me. Well, here's another. Have you heard of Robert Stevens, who worked at Invesco? Only through the press. No, I don't know him. Because he says you didn't manage another of the claims that your supporters have put about. And he says you didn't manage any teams, large or small, didn't manage any funds. I'm absolutely clear. When I was at Invesco Perpetual, I was Senior Investment Officer, working very closely with the Chief Investment Officer. Did you manage funds? No, I'm not a funds manager. I managed in Barclays, I managed the team that deals with Barclays' relationships with banks around the world and with investment banks. You said you ran the investment team at Barclays. I recruited fund managers. It's not the same thing, is it? That I'm not sure if that's my words. Running the investment team at Barclays. Yeah. It's from an article that you wrote for the Financial Times. Okay, so that is the team of fund managers. So the team of fund managers. I mean, I don't really understand why there's such a misunderstanding. You haven't got a practical experience of actually moving around the billions, and people might have got that impression from what your supporters were saying and from what you've said in the past. But in fact, you weren't doing that. You were at a different sort of management level, managing the people who do. Exactly right. And that's very clear in my CV. And you've only ever had a license to trade for about 3 months of your life. I have not been a funds manager. When I started out in my career, I was actually helping set up the sterling commercial paper market, and I was selling sterling commercial paper. I spent some time selling interest rate swaps. I've spent a great deal of time as a banker, so
so approving credit lines and trading limits and trade credit facilities and swaps lines, bank bills and so on, with both investment banks and then with banks around the world. Spent a great deal of time doing that. I've set up a startup funds management company as its managing director, and then I spent 10 years pretty much in Invesco Perpetual as senior investment officer and head of corporate governance. And there I was responsible for things like recruiting fund managers, looking at products and how we define those products, looking at compliance issues, looking at corporate governance issues, writing a quantitative bonus scheme and that sort of thing. My CV is completely clear. But just for the record, you know, my CV doesn't include, I also stacked shelves in Sainsbury's as a kid, and I've been a silver service waitress. I mean, I really don't understand why people are just refusing to accept. You know, my CV is entirely accurate.
Very short final question. We could not only be looking at two women running for the leadership, but two quite devout Christians. Do you ever feel that you've been spoken to directly by God?
That question is not one that is for, you know, open laughing at and poking fun at, and I can absolutely feel that that's what you would like to do. So I absolutely am a Christian, and I'm very proud of it, and you know, it absolutely acts in the background in my desire to have a very honest campaign with high integrity and so on. But if you're asking me, am I going to be sort of saying, oh, well, God's told me to do this and do that, then of course that's not the case.